So it is like the home of like where trance music started. I don't know if this is accurate, but this is what someone told me. So if you are a partier, number one, Tel Aviv is one of the best party cities apparently in the world, as well as if you're looking for like a day party, like psychedelics, weed, anything that is on the realm of day party, trance party, crazy, like anything like that, you will find it in Israel. You will find almost anything you are looking for in Israel, which is really interesting. It's really interesting. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Sarah. Today I want to talk about a few things that you should know before traveling to Israel. So the first thing that you should know is that some people actually refer to Israel as Palestine because Israel is still a country at war. So you should know before you go that it is a country at war. There was an active bombing when I was there, which about the Jenin thing that happened recently, something that hasn't happened in since 1960, happened while I was there. So it is active. There is an active war. So I think that you should be aware of that before you go to a country, because if you go and you see these soldiers on the streets, soldiers carrying weapons, civilians carrying weapons, most people have served in the army. There's a reason. There's a reason that they want to have everyone go into the army, because they have a strong military, because they're at war. They're still protecting their country. It's still a relatively young country. I think it's only 75 years old. And there's still debate on whether or not it should actually be recognized as a country, or if they stole the land, and that's what they're fighting about. So did they take it? Did they have a right to it? And that's something that I am not going into because I don't know enough about it, but I've heard when I was there, I did talk to Muslims and I did talk to Israelis, Jewish Israelis, and obviously they both have their side of the story, but I don't live there, it's not my country. And yeah, so you should know that there's an active war being fought. And where I was staying at night, sometimes you can hear gunshots because it's so close to the border of where the most recent incident happened, but nothing is usually happening up there. But there are still attacks. If you go into certain villages, there's still fights and bombs and attacking. So yeah, that is something that you should be aware of as a tourist in Israel, that active war, something that we don't have in the US. I haven't seen that. Any country that I have been to, I have not seen or been in that. So yeah, just a tip. Seeing soldiers on the streets is something that, to the day I left, I have not gotten used to. And when I talk to other people who live there, like Israelis, they're like, oh yeah, we forget it's so normal to us because almost everyone has to join the military when they turn 18, men and women. But there are exemptions, so not everyone has to. You can get a religious exemption. I believe there's a couple other exemptions that you can get, but most of them serve in the military, to the point of people actually carry handguns with them everywhere they go. And if you've seen recently in the news as well, a terrorist attack was in Tel Aviv. A guy was driving, this was 2 weeks ago, was driving into a coffee shop and he started stabbing people. So it is very common. And then someone just a pedestrian, but someone who's in the army who had a carry permit actually killed the person who was attacking everybody. So I mean, it is that active. These are the two things that happened when I was there. Those are the two very active, normal, everyday things. They call summer rocket summer, because everyone starts bombing and people start running and driving their cars and attacking people, and they don't care who you are. They're not oh, you're a tourist, we're gonna leave you alone. No, I don't really know that much. I'm not an expert on it, so I don't want to talk go into details, but because it's very intense, and it, like I said, depends on who you ask. So sometimes you never know what side of the story you're gonna get, and I got a couple sides of different stories. So you can just respect everybody's opinion because they're the ones who live there. I was just a visitor, so I went, I had a good time, and I left. The second thing that you need when you get and land in Israel, you need to buy a RavKav card or download the Moovit app. If you do not have a RavKav card, you cannot take a bus or a train, so you need it to get around. And basically when you buy it, you can buy it right when you get out of the airport. There's a spot to buy a card, and you load it with your shekels, and then you can tap anywhere you want and you can take it. If you do not have one, you cannot pay the bus driver in cash. They won't take it. You need the card. I ran into a couple people traveling, and they are like, do you have the card? How do you use it? Where'd you get it? Because they didn't buy it, and they were in a city and they didn't have it, and there was nowhere around there to buy it because you can't buy them everywhere. So I don't know what ended up happening with them. Hopefully they found one somewhere. But and then you can do the Moovit app as well. But the only problem with the Moovit app is it's all in Hebrew. Okay, so RavKav or Moovit, you need them. I recommend RavKav. Super easy, and you can reload it even at like ATMs in Jerusalem. I reloaded mine at an ATM. I do minimum 30 shekels, and then you can always ask the bus people how much money you have left, or they'll tell you how much you have left on it. So if you know like you need, because usually taking the bus is like 5 to 6 shekels, so that'll get you enough rides. I refilled mine 3 times, so I spent a total of 90 shekels on traveling. Maybe a little bit more because I bought a couple of my train passes separately because I didn't have enough, and then I don't know why, but you can buy a train ticket without a RavKav, but it's just easier. So the religious aspect, basically the clothing. I walked around wearing this, like showing my arms, and a lot of people will tell you that you can't do that. When I was reading, you can wear anything you want, especially in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a very modern, a very like progressive city, and you can basically wear anything you want unless you go into like a super religious district, like a Jewish district or a Muslim district that you have to cover. And you're gonna know when you're in there because when I was walking, I was walking and I got kind of lost, and I was walking and I got kind of lost in a Jewish Hasidic district, Orthodox district, and a lady told me to like cover up my shirt, had a little bit of a V, and she told me to cover it, so I just did. So I always have a jacket with me just in case. But unless you're going to like the walled city, or you're in a super religious area, or you're going into a temple, a mosque, or like a church, that's the only time that you actually need to cover up. Other than that, you can wear whatever you want. And also you can buy stuff there. Like if you don't have enough stuff, it's really affordable to just buy something there and then just like give it to somebody else, like another traveler, when you leave. So I just wore jeans and like had one shirt with me. I didn't go crazy with my clothing. So basically when it comes to their weekends, so they do celebrate Shabbat, and on Shabbat, usually after 1 o'clock on Friday, Jewish establishments will be closed on Friday afternoons and Saturdays, and they will reopen usually Sunday, but sometimes Saturday night after dark, because that is Shabbat. But not everywhere. Like if you go to the Muslim area, everything's still open because they're not Jewish, so they don't celebrate. But their weekends, when I was on the farm, we actually celebrated our weekends were Friday afternoons and Saturdays. So I don't know so it's like basically your week starts on Sunday is their start of their working week versus Monday like us. For kosher, getting kosher food is pretty easy. If you're not kosher, most of the restaurants are not kosher. So if you want specifically kosher food, you actually have to go to a kosher restaurant. A lot of places don't serve, I didn't see any pork anywhere or shellfish because that is kosher, but in general, I didn't see any pork anywhere because most people don't actually eat it there. You can eat normal food though. Chicken is everywhere. Along with food, there is a lot of markets that you can go to and buy food. If you do go on Friday mornings, they will be busy with everyone preparing for Shabbat. But in general, there are markets everywhere. They have lots of fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and the food. Apparently, Israelis are really good farmers. I learned that working on the Moshav, and they invented the drip system. And someone also told me they invented the cherry tomato. So we ate cherry tomatoes all the time because we had a bunch of them on the farm, as well as tons of fresh fruit and vegetables. A lot of Israelis are actually vegetarian. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, it is like probably one of the easiest countries to find vegetarian and vegan options and the fresh fruit and vegetables. When I first arrived in Tel Aviv, I didn't see any of it, but I think I was in the wrong area and I was looking in the wrong places. So you have to go to the markets, but also in the stores, they just have tons and tons of fresh produce, especially if you leave the cities. You're going to go to the moshavs or the kibbutzes, and everything is fresh and delicious. Back to, I want to kind of cover, do you have to be religious to go to Israel? This is, no, you do not have to be religious. I am not religious at all, and I still had an enjoyable time. It's very interesting to see, for me, someone who is, I was raised Christian, born Jewish, raised Christian, but I'm not religious. I do not go to church. I do not practice any form of organized religion at all. So for me, it was really interesting to see how the three religions kind of blend. Most people there are Jewish or Muslim, and it's really interesting to see like the delineated line of like, this is where they live, this is where the other people live. And then in Nazareth, they kind of sort of, there's like no Jews in Nazareth, mostly Christian, Muslim, compared to like Jerusalem, where Jerusalem is primarily Jewish, but also there's a half that's Muslim. So it's like, maybe it's 50-50. I shouldn't say all Jewish, because there are a lot of Muslims in Jerusalem as well. I don't know how many Christians there are. I didn't look. I saw mostly Jews and Muslims there in Tel Aviv. And then there's Tel Aviv, which is like a normal city. It's one of the busiest, craziest cities in the world. One of the most expensive cities in the world as well. So you will see everything. They had a gay pride parade when I was there. And then Jerusalem also had a gay pride parade. So it's not a country that you have to be religious at all to go visit, as long as if you do go into those religious sections, you respect their rules, because if you don't, they might kick you out. There are like signs in the Orthodox Jewish area, signs of saying like no cameras, no this, no that, or we may ask you to leave, which was crazy, but I mean, I respected their rules. I didn't take any pictures, and I covered myself up. And yeah, but then I went into the Muslim district, and it was fine. I had long sleeves on, I had pants on, I didn't have my head covered, but I still went into that area too, and I was completely fine, because you don't have to be religious to go to like be respectful or to see like culture. Something else that you should know about traveling to Israel is credit cards. Everywhere will take your credit card. Unless you're going to like a street vendor or a street market, that's the only place you actually need cash. So credit card, literally you tap and walk away. That's it. It's like, Israel's very, very advanced. When I was traveling, I always have cash on me, but I found myself hardly ever going to the ATM because everywhere took my credit card. Even like random like coffees in the middle of like the street took my credit card. But like mom and pop shops, sometimes if they're like vendors, they didn't, but most of the time they did. Israelis are also very active. Like whether you're in Tel Aviv, you will see people running on the beach. There are little workout parks everywhere. So everyone is like healthy, active, and a lot of organic, natural products. As well as also, Israel is very expensive. In case you are wondering, it is one of the most expensive countries in the world. Especially Tel Aviv is one of the most expensive cities in the world. So be prepared. I think those are the only things that I can think of. I have a list, so I was copying from my list, reading from my list. I think it's really interesting, a really interesting place to visit, whether you're religious or not, whether you call it whatever you call it. It's interesting how it's just a really interesting and yet strange place. I'm not sure. I would personally never live there. It's really hot. It was like about 40 degrees when I was leaving. Summer was coming, and then in the winter times apparently it gets chilly. They say cold. I don't really know how cold it can possibly get. Desert does it get cold, so they were saying it does get cold at night, but I didn't experience any cold, just super, super hot the whole time. But the people, when you warm up to them, they're warm and open. So after spending a month and a half, almost 2 months there, like I did understand how they are, but it's a culture that it's not just like warm and welcoming immediately. You kind of have to like get to know them before you feel like the Israeli hospitality. but not always. I was some places and people were so warm and open, and then, I don't know, it kind of does remind me of the US, and that was really strange because I don't live in the US, but it kind of had things that were like, oh yeah, this is like, we do this way in the US, or we do this in the US. It's like a very similar, and like I said, even the Israelis said, yeah, we're like mini America. Anyways, it was interesting. So I'm just blabbing now. I hope this video helped you, gave you some little interesting tips and tricks. Drop me a comment. What have you noticed if you've been to Israel? And yeah, so thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.